I left my power cord in Des Moines.
Schrock Innovations presents the Midwest #1 independent computer repair company with service centers in Lincoln, Omaha, Papillion, Des Moines, and across the country via the Schrock desk. This is Compute This.
Good morning, folks, and welcome into Compute This. My name is Thor Schrock. I'm the owner of the Schrock Innovations Computer Company. 4 service centers to help you out when you're having problems with your computers, when you have to get the data back off a crashed hard drive, if you're a business that needs a website. Literally, if it touches a computer in any way, Schrock Innovations can help make it happen for you. Number to join us on the program this morning is 888-250-2091. 888-250-2091. If you ask a question, make a comment, be a part of the show in some way, we'll put you in the drawing for a $25 Schrock Innovations gift certificate, good for anything your heart desires over at the service center. Yeah, we'll put it as a credit on your account. You can stop in anytime and take advantage of that. All right, so for those of you watching at Facebook, facebook.com/Schrock Innovations, wanted to give you a heads up that the background is missing and things look a little weird and a little different. I've been working a lot in Des Moines this week, and I had a customer that brought in his HP 360 laptop and needed me to do some work on it. Didn't have the power cord with him. I thought, no big deal. I've got one of those in my bag. Yeah, so my power cord is still sitting on the bench in Des Moines. You have that feeling when you're leaving someplace and you're like, I'm forgetting something. And you're like, nah, I'm going home. I'm not forgetting anything. And you walk out the door. Yeah, I forgot it. So I'm streaming from my phone today. So a couple things about streaming from the phone. It's a little difficult to hear callers on the live stream on Facebook when they call in. I'll do my best to work something out with you. Also, it's a little difficult for me to interact with you during commercial breaks and stuff. So I'm going to work on some workarounds for that. But in the meantime, enjoy the program there at facebook.com/Schrock Innovations. All right. So now, if you missed last week's show, you missed I guess I say this every week, but it was a really good show last week. The content was great. I felt like I was a little off, like I was a little, I don't know, tired or not quite with the program. But the content was great. So last week, we told you all about the businesses that were making year-end technology purchases to round out their tax liabilities on the year. Not every business was crushed by COVID. Some businesses actually did really well, and if you did really well, you got to make sure you're covered from a tax perspective, so a lot of businesses are buying technology. Also, we talked about movie theaters dying as more companies are streaming movies. Last week it was Warner Brothers. This week, Disney Plus is also going to be co-releasing with theaters. You still have to pay. So you have to pay to be a Disney Plus subscriber. Then you have to pay the same amount for a ticket that you'd pay a theater to watch a new released movie on Disney Plus. And they're going to raise it $1. So it's going to go up $1 because they have 88 million people and, they can do that. Wow, you raise it $1, that's $88 million of revenue. Can you believe that? So it's getting worse every day. And let me just an aside here, guys. The lovely Kimberly and I actually had a semi-normal date night on Friday. We went out to dinner and we went to a movie. Wow, right? We went to Marcus Theaters in Bellevue. We saw White Christmas there at the theater. Last year we tried to get tickets to see White Christmas in the theater, but they were all sold out. This year we were the only 2 people in the theater. There was a piece of tape across the seat that said sanitized for your protection, but there was dried food on the seat. So, go figure. We watched the entire movie start to finish. It was a great experience. Everything went great. But we basically rented a movie theater for $14, and it was creepy. Like when you go out to go to the bathroom, and there's not another soul. Like it's like a tomb. Nobody was in the theater. They had 3 employees working, and they had 1 guy cleaning who apparently comes in 5 minutes before the movie's over and rolls the lights up, so he's ready to clean those 2 seats. Got to wipe them down good and put some tape on them. But they're taking everything seriously, and that's good. But it was refreshing to have a slice of semi-normalness. Do we still have to wear our masks? Because we're the only people in this giant theater. We are effectively socially distanced. We may as well be outside the way they're running the heat in here. I had gloves on, I had a coat on. I was like, this is ridiculous. But I'm not complaining because I'm watching White Christmas in a movie theater. So, little back to normal. So we tried to help out the movie industry where we can. Last week, we also told you about an iPhone hack that allowed anyone to snag anything from your Apple device. We had quite a few iOS device owners come into the service centers to have Sophos installed on their Apple devices after that story, because you realize you don't know it's a hack until somebody talks about it. And if you have a good hack, why would you talk about it? And it just reinforces the need for having somebody from a security perspective watching your back. Also, we talked about some new techniques the ransomware guys are using to get you to pay up. A lot of people say, hey, ransomware, I don't have anything important on my computer. It's not like if I had to wipe it and start over, it would be a big deal. Well, the bad guys have a ransomware for you too. So that's good stuff there. Coming up on the program today, holiday specials are being delivered to customers. We've delivered several of the laptops already. Ironically, this year the desktops are selling a lot better than the laptops, almost 2 to 1. If you look at the available numbers left, I haven't looked at it yet today, but I believe we're under 30 on both at this point. So we're getting pretty tight here. We usually do sell out before the end of the year every year, so I would encourage you to take a look at that. We'll talk a little bit about the holiday specials here in a moment, but they are being delivered. We just got our first large part order. That's how we get the price of these things so low, is we order all the parts together. And we just received the huge part order, memory, hard drives, all that stuff. So the guys are building like little elves right now in the service center. So if you're waiting for your holiday special, sit tight. They are being churned out of the Papillion Service Center, churned out with quality at the Papillion Service Center to make sure we get them over to you. Andy and Lincoln, you bought 2. A laptop and a desktop. Yours are on the way. Also coming up on the program, I have a hot stock tip for you this week. Apple is done ruining Intel's lunch by creating their own processors, but they have another chip on the agenda. So if you are an investor in the tech industry, we're going to warn you about what's coming, probably not yet, but probably a year from now, for another chip maker that could spell trouble. Also, the latest endangered species. It happens, guys. Species come, species go, but Firefox is in trouble. And it's something that, it's not anything you can do anything about aside from use Firefox, right? But Firefox is in a little bit of trouble. And so we're going to tell you what's going on there, because it's the browser that I use. I recommend it to you. So it's important to know what's going on behind the scenes over there as well. It's not Google, which I like. It's not Microsoft, which I like. It's independent. And unfortunately, independent doesn't pay the bills. You have to get money from somewhere. So where is Firefox getting their money, and what does it mean? Also, because we can't seem to have a show every week without some story about ransomware. I don't plan it this way, guys. I literally had a customer come into the Des Moines Service Center while I was there with his iPad and his iPhone. And he says, well, you scared the heck out of me, Thor, on that radio show talking about all this ransomware stuff and people downloading stuff from my iPhone, so I'm going to get everything protected. And I'm like, I don't try to scare people. I mean, if I wanted to scare you, there was 5 different security-related stories that I could have covered today on the program. The ransomware one was the one that is going to impact your lives the most. So I picked that one to cover. The other ones were a little bit in the weeds, but just as dangerous. If you're VPNing or working from home, there's a vulnerability for you. If you're running Windows 7, there's a vulnerability for you. Guess what? Last week was Patch Tuesday. Have you rebooted your computer yet? If not, there's 56 vulnerabilities for you. There's a lot of stories that I could hit on this, guys. So this week, there's a new type of ransomware that's out with a new type of ransomware gang, and they're doing things in a different way. If you've heard of affiliate marketing, that's where if you go on someone's blog, right, and they're saying, buy this stuff off of Amazon, right? And you click on their list and you buy the stuff, they get a little payment for giving you the list and getting you to go to Amazon and buying it. Ransomware is working the same way now. So what that means is you can expect to see a lot more infections coming a lot more rapidly. 888-250-2091. One of the things that I haven't talked a ton about, we've talked about the holiday special every week. We have the holiday special laptop, which is a solid state laptop, and we have the holiday special desktop, which is a modular desktop computer. What does all that mean? If you're new to the program, and it's crazy because I worked. Let me see. I'll be in Des Moines again on Monday, filling some shifts down there. Just spending some time down there. I got Des Moines open, then I moved over into Schrock Interactive for a bit, and now I need to get back into Des Moines a little bit. So it's kind of nice actually to be down in the shop again. I forgot how much I enjoy actually fixing things and helping people out. But one of the cool things is that the holiday special desktop. One of the reasons it's selling so much better than other computers this holiday season is because its upgradable nature. It lasts up to a decade right off the bat because of the parts we put in it. They're so over-spec'd for what you're using the computer for that you're not going to stress them out. So it literally, what you're doing with your computer is an afterthought to the holiday special desktop. But because it has so much power, 5 years from now, when computers have obviously more power than they have today, the holiday special desktop by comparison will be almost normal for a computer that's issued 5 years from now. And then 5 years from then, so now it's 10 years old, it's a decade old, it's starting to show signs of wear, where it's like, yeah, it's probably time to look at some new tech at this point. But you compare that to how long an HP or a Dell desktop are intended to last. You know, the residential stuff that they sell, like the Inspira line and stuff like that, it's intended to last about 18 months. The business stuff is intended to last about 3 years. Now you got to say, why do they last different amounts of time? Why is it that the home stuff doesn't last as long as the business stuff? Well, obviously they're made of different parts. So if you take one of the Dell workstation lines apart and you take a Dell Inspiron apart, the Dell Inspiron is a single motherboard with everything built into the board, everything plugged into the board, and the board runs the computer. There may or may not be a power supply. HP doesn't even put power supplies in anymore. They run it off a laptop power cord. Dell still uses power supplies, but they're usually the skinny, special proprietary power supplies that you can't just go to a computer repair store and get the part. You have to order it, which is a pain in the butt. So when we go and we look at these computers, the reason the workstations last longer is because the parts are individualized. They're not all built together. That means they're repairable and replaceable, right? So Dell does know how to do this. HP does know how to do this. They choose not to. And they choose not to because they're in the business of selling computers. So when you're selling computers to a business that's going to depreciate the computers over 3 or 5 years, you want to make sure the computers last 3 to 5 years, right? When you're in the business of selling computers to individual consumers, you just have to get the computer to last long enough that the customer forgets when they bought it, which is about 18 months. I mean, people say it all the time. Thor, I haven't had this computer very long. And they bring it into the service center and it's like 7 years old. I'm like, we need to define what very long here is. And very long is 2 years. Very long is like, wow, that computer's lasted you a long time. It's 2 years old. And people just don't understand that because the computers they have right now have lasted longer than that. They don't believe me, whatever the case might be. Some people just say, who cares? I'll just buy a new computer when it comes time, right? Well, it matters because when you have to move your data from computer to computer to computer, and then your office isn't compatible, you got to buy a new copy of that, and then you got to set up your email, but the email program that you used to use, like Live Mail, isn't compatible anymore with the new Windows 10, so you can't use that. Now you change on top of change. I'm not trying to be the old curmudgeon here who's like, oh, I hate to change things, but seriously, oh, I hate to change things. Why? Why do we have to change everything all the time? The solution here is you don't have to change nearly as much if you stay with the same computer. So that's one of the reasons why our modular computers are so much better than the computers you're going to buy out on the off the shelf or on Dell.com, the residential stuff you're going to get. Because you're basically getting a business grade computer at a residential grade price. Now the holiday special laptop, this is interesting. So we get the laptops in from Asus. There are Asus unibodies that we get. And we promptly open them up and yank everything that's removable out and replace it. Yeah. So the holiday special laptop, a lot of people will look at it and be like, I can find that computer online for like less than $1,500. Yeah, you could, but you're not going to find it with the high-speed triple layer solid-state hard drive in it. You're going to find it with the piece of junk solid-state hard drive that Asus puts in there so they can say it has a solid-state hard drive in it. When it does, they're not lying. It has a solid-state. It's not mechanical. It doesn't spin or anything. But there's different grades of solid-state, just like there's different grades of memory chips. So we replace everything that's replaceable in those things and rebuild them and send them out to you as holiday special laptops backed with a Schrock 1-year warranty. Now, they sell for $1,599. They're $1,599, okay? This is a laptop that has 16 gigs of RAM. It has 2 screens on the laptop. Yes, the touchpad is a screen as well. It's got the 500 gig solid state hard drive that's upgradable all the way up to 2 terabytes. We've got it's a 15-inch screen, but it's no bezel, so the size of the laptop is like a 14-inch, but it still has a 10 keypad. This thing is like a ball of contradictions. And it's the only laptop that we could find that met the stringent quality concerns that we have, as well as gave us enough options. Like the 4K screen is amazing on your eyes. When you use that screen, you wonder how you ever used your full HD screen before this. Like, how did I do that? You're never going to go back. Ruining you. I'm ruining you with this laptop. But it's going to last a long, long time. Because, number one, there's no moving parts aside from the fans. The only thing that's really going to wear out in this computer over the first 4 years is going to be the battery. And there's nothing we can do about that. Batteries are electrochemical reactions. Batteries last a couple years and they die, if you're lucky. That's why we tell you get the extended warranty. Because if your battery goes belly up on you, we'll replace it for free. How about that? Under warranty. Our warranties cover the batteries, unlike everybody else that doesn't. So that's a little bit about the holiday special laptop, desktop, what makes them special, and why it's important to look at the hardware that's inside the computers you're buying before you make a decision just to purchase whatever's on the shelf out there. 888-250-2091. When we come back from the break, I know, okay, I used this line the other week and I got a couple chuckles out of it, but if you're going to take your stock trading advice from the computer repair guy, you deserve what you get. So let me reframe this. It's not a hot stock tip because it's not hot. It's not going to happen Monday or anything. But it is a tip. It's something to keep an eye on. Apple is working on a new chip. And when they get this right, it's going to mean real bad news for one of Apple's suppliers. And of course, you can sit back and say, they'll never get it. They'll never figure that out. That's what Intel did. And the funny thing is when you give a company unlimited amounts of money, and lots of profitability increases for creating their own stuff, and you pair them up against an industry that's kind of been lazy, like Intel has, and frankly AMD too. I mean, AMD's done more than Intel, but really we're talking about an industry where you have to move a couple inches to be an innovator, and Apple literally just laid down a yardstick and said, well, there you go, boys. Now people are saying maybe Apple is going to sell their M1 processors to PCs.
What's the question for Thor?
Now, I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but if they did that, imagine the disruption that you would have if Apple was suddenly building server chips and desktop chips and laptop chips for things aside from Apple computers. I'm not sure they'll do that, but imagine if they did. This next chip, though, has the potential to be that, and it could completely upend the entire cell phone industry. We're going to tell you what that is coming up next on Compute This.
All right. One moment, man.
Well, upside, guys, is that I can talk to you during the commercial breaks. Oh, golly. So let me see if I can get a thing up here so I can take a look at your comments. I've got Camille helping me out a little bit here, taking a look at comments and answering questions that she can. Because on my tiny little phone screen, first of all, if I touch the screen, the camera moves. So we can't touch the screen, right? We don't want that to happen. I can't believe I left my power cord in Des Moines. I was walking out the door and I was like, I'm forgetting something. But it's 6 o'clock and I had like a 2-hour drive home. And it was 6:30 actually. I had a customer come in like right before 6. So I was like, when I get home, I got to put the kids in bed and eat some dinner at some point, right? And so I was like, okay, I gotta go. And I went out the door. And then when I got halfway home, I realized, there was a return that I had all packaged up and ready to go back because it was a defective part. I was like, that must have been what I was forgetting. No big deal. I'll pick it up Monday. It'll go out. It wasn't going anywhere till Monday anyway. No, it was my power cord. That's what I was forgetting. Fun times. All right, let's scroll down. Here we go. Yep, and I forgot that I can't have my phone turned lengthwise because you can't apparently have a landscape mode live stream. You have to have it in portrait mode. So when the video starts, I'm sideways. I'm like, welcome to Compute This. All right, let's take a look. Good morning, Mary. Winston, thanks for being here. Hopefully the audio sounds good. If it doesn't, there's not a darn thing I can do about it. All right, Mitch, good to have you. Alrighty. Thor, we found 2 different emails from someone at the Des Moines Service Center, but with the Omaha Service Center number stating we need to set up a Zoom meeting to discuss our business strategy. She said she was with Schrock Interactive. Is this a legit email? All right. If that email was from Annette Newman, yeah, she handles all of our business stuff. So if it's a website, a corporate service agreement, things like that, that's Annette. All right, here we go. Alrighty, folks, welcome back into Compute This. My name is Thor Schrock. I'm the owner of the Schrock Innovations Computer Company. Number to join us on the program this morning is 888-250-2091, and that's what Greg has done. Greg, welcome to the program. How can I help you today on Compute This? No problem. Sure.
When I go to that external hard drive now, it seems like it's terribly slow. Well, if we got more stuff, like sell a bigger backup hard drive.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You can also, one of the things with the mechanical or rotating disk hard drives, the external hard drives, when you buy those at the store, not our store, but like, Best Buy or any big box store, the hard drive manufacturers put the absolute slowest hard drives inside of those enclosures because it's an external hard drive. What do you care, right? The problem is that your USB port is actually faster than the hard drive that's in the enclosure. So we can change that. We can get an enclosure. We can put a solid state hard drive in it, and it will be a lot faster. We can put bigger hard drives in. As a rule of thumb, though, I don't like you to go larger than 2 terabytes on an external if you can help it. Reason being, once you get bigger than that, they get incredibly fragile. And all it takes is like a bonk on the table or something to cause the hard drive to fail. And it's a backup drive, so who cares, right? I mean, you just get a new one, but still, we don't want to be, dropping money on backup drives every other day of the week if we can help it. Now, is this a laptop or a desktop that we're backing up? Okay, so one of the other things that I might suggest, rather than purchasing a new external hard drive, in many cases we can actually install another hard drive inside the computer. And that's the safest place for hard drives to live. They will be much faster inside the computer than outside of the computer. The backups, literally would still happen automatically. You don't have to worry about a USB cord or anything. The only thing that you lose with that is, if there was like a fire, a flood, a tornado, something crazy happens, and you wanted to grab that hard drive and run out the door. Instead, you have to grab your whole tower and run out the door. Because oh, the tornado's coming, quick, get the computer, let's go to the basement. That's what everybody says, right? I mean, that's not just me? No? Okay. But the external hard drive gives you the option to have something that is a removable backup. Also, it gives you a little bit of protection in case of ransomware. You get it's like cold storage. As long as it's not hooked up to the computer, it can't be encrypted. But if you have an external hard drive, go ahead. If you're looking for an excuse to buy a new computer, you've got one. We happen to sell computers, we fix computers, we do it all, so it's not like I have a vested interest in steering you one way or the other here. But what I usually tell my customers is when your computer is unable to do the things that you need it to do, that's when you should look at a new computer. So for example, in the Des Moines Service Center this week, I had a customer on my bench, had a $900 computer repair. Literally, it was a $900 repair on a computer that probably cost him about $600 to buy. And of course, like a lot of people, he says, should I put the money into the computer? Now, when we sat down and broke out the repair, and when you take out the antivirus that you would have to put on a new computer anyway, and you take out the secure updater that you'd have to put on a new computer anyway, and you take out the virus removal charges because you're going to have to remove the viruses before we can transfer the data to the new computer anyway. Once we get all that stuff out of the picture, then the repair cost is actually quite reasonable. It's less than half of the cost of a new computer. And then if we look at a new computer and we start stacking everything on top of it, we see that, we're talking about $900 versus, $1,700. And, this gentleman happened to be around 80 years old. And he said, so you think maybe if I do this work to my computer, it might last me the rest of my life. And I'm like, hey, I'm an optimist, man. You're going to need like 3 new computers before you die. But no, it's going to last you a while. It's definitely going to last you a year or two here to get everything going. So anyway, sometimes it makes sense to do repairs even when they're expensive to existing computers. Sometimes it makes more sense to move on to a new computer. And that's the thing. What we do at Schrock is we're going to put all the information on the table in front of you so that you can make an informed decision that works best for you. We're going to give you the pros and the cons of both. We'll give you a recommendation, but then we'll ask you to make the decision. We have a pretty good track record over 21 years of having people make the right decisions. Thanks for the call, Greg. I appreciate it. We got you in the drawing there for a $25 Schrock Innovations gift certificate as well. 888-250-2091. So Apple created their new M1 processor. The M1 processor is a processing marvel, actually. It is going to make the MacBook Pro line very, very competitive with PC, because as we've been saying for years, there is not really a difference between the hardware in a Mac and a PC. It's the same hardware. You're just paying the Apple tax for the software. So you're really paying like $900 for an operating system, if you want to look at it that way. It's the same thing as a computer you can buy off the shelf. Yeah, there's a touch bar and things, gimmicky stuff, but it is what it is, right? So Apple decided they were going to make their own processor because they were not happy with the security vulnerabilities of the Intel chips, how Intel handled those vulnerabilities, as well as the fact that, they don't have a competitive advantage when they use Intel's chips because it's the same chips that everybody else gets. And so they have the same speed that everybody else has. There's not really an advantage to buying a MacBook, right? So now Apple has their own M1 processors. These things are wicked fast. They represent a huge leap forward in processing technology. Currently, they're only available in Apple products. Different flavors of the chip will be available depending on what laptop or all-in-one or iPad you buy. So literally, they're not reliant on Intel for anything anymore, which is great, right? Great for Apple anyway. The next one that Apple's coming up against is Apple wants to build their own modems. And this sounds, at first, it sounds weird. They want to buy a modem, or they want to build a modem. That's weird. But what they want to do is they want to replace Qualcomm. So we're talking about, these are the Wi-Fi chips and the 3G, 4G modems. I almost said 5G. Like, didn't Trump do that once? We don't just want 4G. We want 5G. We want 6G. So they want to make all the different modems, right? They want to have it all under Apple's roof so that they can innovate and they can they believe they can build a better modem than Qualcomm is. And if they succeed in this, it could give the iPhone a competitive advantage once again. Now, historically, Apple has done very, very well as a company when they have their own proprietary hardware that gives them a competitive advantage. There was a time way back, some of you may not remember this, but way back, in the late 70s, early 80s, Apple actually had Apple clones. They were following the PC model where you could clone a Mac. You could have your own Mac that was built by some Joe Blow's factory somewhere. The stock, the company literally was tanking because there was no competitive advantage for having a Mac. If anyone can build it, it's not special. That's when they brought Steve Jobs back, and he made Apple into something special again. And so basically, if Apple keeps the hardware to themselves, they're going to be something very special. But also, they have another revenue possibility here that they can sell these modems to other companies. Because unlike the M1 processor that gives you a huge advantage in the device, everybody who has a phone needs a modem, right? It's a commodity. Unless they do something crazy with their cellular modem, they could literally displace Qualcomm. So just a heads up, stock traders out there, you might want to hedge a little bit on the Qualcomm stock. It took them years to build the M1 chips, but basically I'm trying to see if there's any kind of Apple is licensing stuff from Qualcomm for the next 6 years. So take with that what you will, but you got some time, but it's something to keep an eye on going forward in the future. Alrighty, folks. Number to join us on the program, 888-250-2091. Kathy and Rob, stay on the lines. Your calls are coming up next on Compute This. All right. So we got Kathy, who's got some questions about her new computer, and we have Rob, up and running to do things the safe way using Zoom. Well, keep your pants on. That's the first thing. Who was the politician that?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Stay completely dressed when you're on Zoom. Rule number 1, keep your clothes on. Rule number 2, hand check. Rule number 3. One of the things, it was kind of funny, you talk about like the safe way to do Zoom, but we have weekly meetings at Schrock. And some of my guys, I don't expect them. I've been in front of cameras for years, so I understand when to look at the camera, when not to look at the camera. I'm watching White Christmas in the movie theater, and while they're dancing, she's spinning around, and she's going, camera lock, camera lock, camera lock. And I'm like, is she doing that on purpose, or does she just not know not to look at the camera? You don't look at the camera when you're in a movie. The camera's not there. The camera is my eye. You're looking at me like you're spinning, and you're like, hello, Thor. Like, why are you doing that?
Sisters.
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 So anyway, I'm teaching these kids, like, okay, so when you're in a Zoom meeting and you're like this,
Lots of people have different ideas about what backing up means. Is it copying files to a flash drive? Is it using a fancy backup?
wow, guys, you know, when you're in a Zoom meeting, you don't look at the screen. You don't look down here at the screen at the person talking. You look at the camera because everybody else is seeing your eyes, and your eyes are looking right into the eyes of everybody else on the screen right now because you're looking at the camera. I can still see myself in my periphery. If Emily comes back here and starts dancing, I'm going to see Emily back here.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Well, I'll see her back there. You'll see her too. But I'm still going to look at the camera lens because I'm going to be like, what is this? You know? So it's just weird. And then, you know, teaching them little things like Zoom meeting etiquette. You know, don't eat on a Zoom call. Yeah, don't do that. What else is there? Yes, you don't have to wear like a complete, you know, work clothing and then whatever else, but, you know, don't have a cheesy green screen background. Okay, I'm sorry, but everybody knows it's a green screen. Everybody knows you're not at the beach. You know, at least here in the studio, like when I have my green screen behind me and there's like a Schrock logo on it, everyone's like, oh yeah, he's with Schrock. That makes total sense, right? Now, if I put up a green screen behind me that had like, you know, Bermuda, and I come on here with my surfboard, and I'm standing here like, after the show, I'm going to go out and surf, guys, but I took some time to talk to you first. Come on. Just so be real in your Zoom calls. There you go. So we'll talk to Rob and find out what he's concerned about being safe, you know, with Zoom. We have had a lot of talk internally about including Zoom in Secure Updater. They put out so many updates for Zoom, and nobody ever installs it. And Zoom does such a terrible job of pushing the updates that literally you can get so far behind, they're like, you can't connect to a Zoom call till you do this. So we're thinking about including that in Secure Updater as well. All right.
5 seconds.
Mid-teens. Alrighty, folks. Thanks for sticking with us through the potty break there. Hope you all got your snacks and made it back to the computer, radio, phone, whatever you're choosing to compute this on today. Number to join us on the program, 888-250-2091, and we're going to give away a $25 Schrock Innovations gift certificate to one lucky person who calls, comments, makes an appearance on the program, if you will. We're here to help you out with your computer problems. Kathy, Rob, stay on the line. We'll get to you in just a moment here. Coming up on the program today, we've got a story about Firefox. Firefox, the endangered species. Now with Edge being such a powerful browser compared to Google Chrome. So let me give you a little history on this. There's Google Chrome, and Google Chrome is based on the open source browser, also made by Google, called Chromium. So Chromium, they released the source code for Chromium. Anybody can look at Chromium, and any coder can look at it and say, like, this is what it does, this is what it sends, this is how it works, this is safe, this isn't safe. It's an open source project. Google then takes that open source project and then layers their own special sauce on top to do all kinds of different things. That code is not public. That code is not able to be perused by people that could inspect it and see what Google is sending back about your computer or your use or whatever else. That code stays with Google. So Microsoft had Internet Explorer for a long time. We talked last week about how now I actually had this happen. I was in the Des Moines Service Center, and I went to commit an absolute sin on Saturday. I was trying to listen to the Husker football game in Iowa. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Shh. So I went to the website. I won't drop letters and stuff, but I went to the radio station website to go load the game, and it said you don't have the latest version of the Flash player. And I'm like, you can't run the Flash player anymore. So then I went and I said, okay, well, let me download the Flash player. And then I'm like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm a professional, folks. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm going to open Internet Explorer and use the Flash player in that so I can listen to the Husker game. I opened Internet Explorer, and it said, we opened up your web page in Edge. In other words, you can't open anything in Internet Explorer anymore. They already did that. That was the last update. So now I'm like, what am I going to do? I ended up listening. I had to listen on. I found the local station in Lincoln actually was carrying the broadcast, but it apparently their servers were overwhelmed or something. It pooped out on me. So then I was listening to like the Minnesota version, and it's weird because the announcers get excited when Minnesota does something good, and you're like, oh, but then they sound so excited, you know, and they're like, oh, look at those Nebraska guys, you know, it's funny to listen to, right? So anyway, when you're dealing with browsers, you pretty much had a choice of Edge, Chrome, or Firefox. Now, Microsoft Edge was having trouble competing with all the other browsers because Edge would only run originally on a Microsoft computer. You can't go get Edge for your Mac, right? A lot of people who develop websites develop them on Macs, so which means they can't test websites on a Mac. You can't test it with Edge on a Mac. So therefore, it didn't get tested with Edge, and then therefore some websites just don't work on Edge. So Microsoft had a big problem. And finally, Microsoft just said, listen, we're sinking all this money into this unique browser that we're building that is different technology. But if people want different technology, they're just going to go with Firefox. So why don't we, if you can't beat them, join them? And so Microsoft took the open source Chromium browser, which anyone can look at and inspect the source code, and they put all their Microsoft secret sauce on top, except Microsoft actually secret sauced better than Google did. Edge is faster than Google, even though it's the same browser. Google's is not spying on you when you use Edge. Now, it's just Microsoft spying on you when you use Edge. But at least it's not Google, right? They spread my data out among several companies. At least they have to buy it from each other then, right? Or you can just choose to use Firefox. Firefox has pushed the boundaries on a number of things. For example, encryption, so that your internet service providers can't determine what you're doing with your web browser. You probably didn't realize this, but all internet service providers sell your browsing history to other advertising agencies. So they know what you're looking at, and they use that to develop an advertising profile when they're, trying to pick ads to go in as a particular zip code or something, or if they're going to send mailers to houses. All this stuff is aggregated. InfoUSA can aggregate all this for you. They've offered to do it for me. We can tell you how many people in the city of Des Moines are this, that, and the other. And I'm like, how do you have this data? And they're like, oh, we get it from all kinds of places. Well, you can buy data anywhere. And this is where the data comes from, right? So that's why I like using Firefox. The problem that Firefox has is they're a nonprofit. They don't actually they don't charge for their products and services. And we've said long-standingly on the show, there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? So Firefox is going to get their money from somewhere. And right now, they're getting almost 80% of their revenue from Google. Why is Google paying Firefox for millions, hundreds of millions of dollars a year? Like, let me make sure I get the number right. Let's see. Mozilla didn't need to mention these cuts in their financial report and associated documents. It's worth noting that their 2019 Form 990 report, the nonprofit Mozilla Foundation, not the commercial Mozilla Corporation, reported $28.4 million in income and $21.9 million in expenses. So the foundation is profitable, but they got $495.3 million from Google. And Google is paying them so that when you install Firefox, Google is the default browser. Do you remember briefly when Google stopped paying them, and all of a sudden your default browser in Firefox became Yahoo? And you're like, really? Yahoo? Yahoo? Why did that happen? Well, they were basically saying, well, if you're not going to pay us, Google, we're going to send people to Yahoo. And enough people got sent to Yahoo that Google is ponying up $495 million to keep them per year. So that's where Firefox is getting the money to make Firefox. They're also laying off engineers left and right. So they have a shrinking base. So without some kind of a revenue model or some kind of a product for sale, Firefox is not going to be able to probably be a very viable entity moving forward. They're going to have to do something. So I'm going to be interested to see how they come out on the end of this. They offer a lot of great free services. They'll tell you if your email address has been involved in a data breach and if you need to change your password. No charge for that. They also make Thunderbird, which is a free email client that competes with Microsoft Outlook. They have the Firefox browser, which is pioneering several encryption technologies to help keep your data safe. It gives you an alternative so that you don't have to send all your information through Google. You could just use Chromium, not Chrome, but Chromium. You can download and run Chromium on your computer, and it's the same thing as Google Chrome without the spyware. So, I mean, that works out. So there's some alternatives you can do out there, but I like Firefox, and it's going to be sad to see Firefox go. So we're going to keep you posted on this. Nothing's happening right this minute, but the writing appears to be on the wall for Firefox. All right, number to join us on the program today is 888-250-2091. Kathy, welcome to the program. How can I help you on Compute This today?
Yeah, I've been considering buying a new computer, but I'm concerned about having to transfer everything from the old computer to the new one, including the program.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I had to install a hard drive, it took me forever to get everything, and the data went over, but I reinstalled all of the programs other than their Drive Advisor and Picture Updater.
Right.
Everything else had to be installed, and it was a mess.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you buy a new computer and you're doing a data transfer, like you said, we have the data transfer service. We can move all your files and your settings. It gives us a list of the programs that you have installed on the computer when we do that transfer, so that we can then ask you, do you have the disks for this program? Do you have the codes for that program? Or this program that you have, like your TurboTax 2012 isn't going to run on the new computer. You're going to have to buy TurboTax 2020. So, I mean, unfortunately, there isn't really a way to, we can't move programs from one computer to the other. We had a situation with a customer who has an office computer, and his secretary had tons of software installed, and he wouldn't have even known where to begin to reinstall all that software. And he paid us hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get to basically rebuild that hard drive from scratch, because we tried to just move it to the new computer and insert a new product code for Windows and then see if we could just get it to go, and it just wouldn't go, because the differences in the drivers are so immense. So we tried stripping the drivers out. We finally got it up and running. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to transfer an installation of Windows from one computer to the other computer and carry the programs with. But that's one of the reasons why we include that in the data transfer. So when you purchase the data transfer, some people don't realize this, but we'll reinstall your programs for you too. We'll reinstall your printer when you get home. We'll make sure your email is set up and working when you get home. So the objective of the data transfer is to try to get as much of the computer together and working, so that when you take it home, you can have as seamless of an experience as possible. Sometimes it's more seamless and sometimes it's less seamless, but it sounds like you went through that on a hard drive here within the past few years. So hopefully we've got all that stuff still together, so that we can just say, here's all the stuff we had to do last time, and we can do it again. All right.
Well, then, looking at the computer after Christmas, got to take care of the kids first.
I understand, Kathy. You're not alone out there. There's going to be a lot of people in that boat, I think. Thank you very much for calling the program today. I appreciate it. One of the quick things that I wanted to mention, we had a customer, and I have to email this customer back. She sent an email in to the service center saying she was incredibly disappointed with our computers. She bought a Resolute laptop, which is the lower end laptop, and she said she was on a phone call with Microsoft, and Microsoft told her that her laptop was built in 2015. She bought it in 2020, obviously, and that the technology was incredibly outdated, and she got ripped off, and she should return it. It always breaks my heart when I have customers who think that something like that would be the case. Now, I will freely tell you that the Resolute laptop is tech from 2017. It's 2017 tech. I mean, there is no competitor laptop. Whenever you buy a low-end laptop, you're buying tech that's a gen or two old. Go buy a cell phone. When you get the cell phone deals, like the free phone deals, you're not getting the flagship current phone for that. You're getting a phone that's 1 or 2 generations out of cycle. Doesn't mean it works badly. We wouldn't sell the computer to somebody that it wasn't going to work for. Now, with that said, the thing that concerned me more about her email was that somebody was tricking her. She was talking to Microsoft. Did anybody else catch that? Sometimes when I'm bored, I like to pick up the phone. Bill, how's Melinda? How are the grandkids? Everything going good over there? I mean, I know you don't actively work at Microsoft anymore, but I'm sure you're still involved in some way. The vaccine thing is crazy. I know we have to I can't believe we're going to give it to Americans first before we give it to people from overseas. I mean, the audacity of our government. Let me tell you what, I'm right there with you, buddy. Nobody talks to Microsoft. You don't call Microsoft. You don't get support. But if you Google Microsoft phone number, you'll see an 800 number there. That's not Microsoft. Don't call that number. You're not talking to Microsoft. So I have to email. I'm probably just going to end up calling her back because sometimes things are just better explained over the phone. But I want to reiterate. If you get a phone call from anyone claiming to be Microsoft, they are not Microsoft. If you get a phone call from someone claiming to be Google, if you're a business, your Google business listing is out of date. We're with Google and we're trying to keep your listing up to date. If you don't give us a call back, we're going to remove your listing. That's not Google. That's somebody trying to sell you something that they're going to post on Google. So Google doesn't call you. Microsoft doesn't call you. You know, Schrock calls you about stuff, but not Microsoft, okay? So if you get a call from anyone claiming to be Microsoft or, well, no, we're not Microsoft, we're Microsoft authorized. Microsoft doesn't authorize people to call on their behalf. I can be Microsoft authorized to fix Microsoft products. That doesn't mean Microsoft says call our customers at random and talk to them about their hardware. So be really careful what you believe from people who call you and tell you things that are obviously not true from the get-go. And I don't know what they were trying to rope her into buying or doing by telling her computer was 2015 technology. I thought they were trying to sell her a computer or some speed up my computer product or something, but there was obviously an angle there because they all have an angle. But it's one of those things where, you know, we're going to have to give her a call now and try to straighten this out. So if somebody gives you a call and says something along the lines of, you know, hey, your computer has a virus or your IP address is infected, that's not really Microsoft. And if it happens to your family or your relatives, let them know that too over the holiday season, that that's not really Microsoft. And we're always willing and able to help. If you want us just to confirm, if you get a weird call, you can call Schrock and we'll tell you, hey, that's not a real call. 888-250-2091. Rob, hang on the line. Your call is coming up next, as well as the newest ransomware that uses affiliate networks to infect you faster. Coming up next on Compute This.
If you can dream it,
Excuse me, guys. My voice is like going crazy here. Normally, you wouldn't hear any of that, right? I'm hitting the cough button. That's why you're not hearing it on the radio. But you guys have your own private microphone today because you're special. Why can't I green screen in Facebook Live? I can do it in Zoom. Why can't I do it in Facebook Live?
Egyptian behind.
In a green suit.
Yeah.
There'd just be hands.
I walk like an Egyptian.
All right, let's see if we got some comments here. All right. So, yep, Jenny, that's a legit email. Peggy, do you know why I can't share a YouTube video to Facebook? Last Sunday I could, today I can't. Are you trying to share another, steal the election video again? Bad girl. Or is it an anti-vaxxer video? Bad girl. No, you should be able to share videos between Facebook, from YouTube to Facebook pretty easily. When you post a link to the video, it should just pop right in. So no, I'm not sure why it's not, unless it's a video that Facebook does not want to have shared on their platform, which there are videos they will preclude you from sharing. All right. Morning from Phoenix. Good morning, Nancy. Are you the only? I think you might be our only listener in Phoenix today. I was having some problems with the computer, so I restarted it, and after it was restarted, my volume was muted. A pop-up showed saying, I noticed you're having trouble with your volume. Would you like me to check your computer? Of course, since I listened to you, I restarted my computer again, and volume was fine. All right, Microsoft has introduced this things called troubleshooters that will automatically, it looks like a chat bot. When it freaks people out because they think they're chatting with somebody, but it's just a bot. And literally, you're typing your problem, and it's trying through artificial intelligence to figure out what stuff to do to the computer to fix it. Usually it doesn't work. This is like, hit F1 for help, and you hit F1 and it brings up like a dictionary, and you're like, not helpful. It's very similar to that. Remember Clippy, the paperclip? It's like Clippy, except now it's a chat bot. All right, final segment, guys. Here we go. All righty, folks. Welcome back in. Final segment of the program. I want to remind everybody that after the show, we're going to have the beautiful thing here is I don't have to start a new video, right? Because I don't have to switch sources because you can't do that on Facebook. So we're just going to keep rolling here once we get done with the the show. So tune in live, facebook.com/Schrock Innovations for the Aftershock, where I'm going to tell you kind of what's going on in Des Moines, why I've been down there so much, why Parker's been down there so much. We are still hiring new technicians in the Des Moines Service Center. We're looking for junior and senior technicians. You can check out our postings on Indeed to take a look at those as well. But yeah, the Aftershock is where we stick all the stuff that doesn't quite fit into the regular program. I want to remind everybody one more time also, holiday special laptop and desktop. We are getting down. We're up under 30 units on both of them. And I still have a 26 laptop, 26 desktop quote floating out there. And as these numbers get closer and closer to being, underneath that number, the odds of that quote coming through pretty quick are pretty good. So just a heads up, if it's something you're thinking about doing, I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. We can't get it to you before Christmas at this point, but we are quoting 14 to 21 business days on a build. We're supposed to say 21. We're filling at 14 right now. Some of the original holiday special desktops are a little bit later, just because we just got that big part shipment in. And so now that it's here, it took a week and a half to get here because, coronavirus, I guess, is slowing down UPS trucks. Man, I drove to Des Moines yesterday morning, though, and there were a lot of trucks overturned on the interstate from that snowstorm. So it was pretty crazy. I'm like, someone's Christmas presents are going to be late right there. All right, so the last thing we got on the program today, guys, is a story about ransomware. And I know they get old, and I saved this one for the very end of the show so that we didn't. Here was the options. I could talk about how McDonald's franchisees are being saddled. Remember how we talked about all the cool tech McDonald's has? It's making your experience better. Franchisees are having to pay for that, and they're having to pay a lot for it. And it's literally pushing them out of business. So they don't like that. We could have talked about that story. But how many of you are McDonald's franchisees? How many of you run computers that could get infected with ransomware? Now you can see kind of the logic behind the story choice here, right? All right, so this new ransomware, there's a new type of ransomware that's growing in strength, and researchers are becoming alarmed that it could become a really big threat. This one is called Mount Locker. The Mount Locker ransomware, they're clearly just warming up, say researchers. The concept behind this is rather than having a ransomware infection that the bad guys are trying to go and push onto your computers, they are hooking up with affiliate networks. And the concept isn't entirely new, but it's never been formalized like this before. Where let's say you're a hacker dude and you've got access to a bunch of computers somehow. You can go over to Mount Locker and say, I have access to a bunch of computers. I will put Mount Locker on them. Here's my affiliate ID. And when they pay the ransom, I get a cut of the Bitcoin. Here's my Bitcoin wallet. This is super scary stuff, guys, because this could be an IT administrator who's disillusioned with a company. I don't know how the malware got on there. Maybe if I had a budget for antivirus and security software like I've been asking for, this wouldn't have happened. Meanwhile, he's getting a cut on the back end. Now, yes, I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here, but it's conceivable, right? We've seen things like this happen before. So Mount Locker, it works just like any other ransomware. It infects your computer. Once infected, it encrypts your files. Copies of your files are transmitted over your internet connection to the bad guys. Number one, if you have a cold storage backup and you decrypt your files, they will release your files on the internet so that anyone can view them forever. There's no expiration date or anything like that. They're just out there on the dark web forever. So if you have sensitive documents, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist even, if you are somebody who enjoys their privacy, your documents are just out there forever. You may pay the ransom to prevent that from happening, even though you don't need the decrypted files because you have a backup copy. So they do all the same stuff that the other ransomware gangs do, but on top of that, they're infecting people faster because they're not doing the actual infecting. So let's say I am Billy Bob's ransomware company, and Billy Bob's ransomware company infects your computers. You pay the ransom to get decrypted, right? Billy Bob still knows how he got into your system. Billy Bob knows that you're still vulnerable. Now, perhaps Billy Bob is a semi-honorable thief. And Billy Bob says, I would never reinfect you with our ransomware, but I would certainly reinfect you with Mount Locker and take a cut of when you pay them the ransom too, because you're obviously a mark. In fact, I saw a statistic this week from Sophos that 72% of people who get infected with a virus within 1 year will be reinfected again. Number one, they don't learn. They get infected, they pay us to remove the infection, and they say, oh no, I'm fine with McAfee. And I had this big diatribe last week about how definition-based antivirus is dead. If they have to update your definitions, it's too slow. Let's say you get an update every 2 hours, which you don't, but let's say you did, that's too slow. It would have to be almost real-time definition updates, and that might be fast enough. But the problem is there's always a lag time between somebody getting infected and the researchers figuring out what it is and figuring out a signature for it and then updating your client. There's always a lag time there. Sophos is so powerful. That's what we're installing on people's computers now because of its machine learning capability. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Gee, I wonder if this human being is opening up thousands of files on their hard drive and encrypting them and then saving them again and then putting a little notepad file that says the same thing in every folder on their desktop. Wow, that seems a lot like ransomware. Maybe we should stop that and allow maybe the stuff to go back to the way it was and quarantine that virus. And so they do. That's what Sophos Intercept X does. So that in a nutshell, is one of the big reasons that we moved away from Semantic Endpoint over to Sophos. So if you are still running Semantic Endpoint on your computer, especially if you bought it from us, we need to get you moved over to Sophos because you are literally living on borrowed time. We have already canceled your licenses. We are aware that Broadcom, for whatever reason, hasn't ended those licenses yet. But in essence, you're getting definition-based antivirus, guys. That's what Broadcom is giving you. If you have Norton LifeLock, I posted a picture on Facebook this week. 3,000 infections on the computer, and then to the left of it was Norton LifeLock says you're safe. I can't do it for you. Norton LifeLock is junk. In my opinion, it's junk. I have to be careful. Alleged junk. It's allegedly junk. All right. Last call of the show, Rob. Welcome to the program. How can I help you on Compute This today?
Yeah, hi. I teach English. I'm trying to teach English online.
Okay.
I just got ignored.
Sorry.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Some kind of thing you're saying. But I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. Now, Iowa educated, so you'd think I'd be smarter with this, but I'm smarter with everything else.
Okay.
I'm not very smart with a computer, and I'm slightly afraid of it. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you tell me what are the best things besides listening to you to get myself up to speed?
Sure. All right. So as far as getting up to speed, Kim Commando has a pretty decent show. Be careful. A lot of the things she recommends are paid recommendations, so don't always take her product recommendations to heart. But some other things you can do, obviously, we have a product called the Schrock Desk that allows you to get unlimited computer help whenever you need it. We can do it remotely over the internet. So that would be something. It's $30 a month. You can subscribe to it, and you can cancel anytime. So that would be probably one of the biggest things that I would suggest you do. That's going to give you the biggest opportunity. As far as reading, honestly, any of the PC Magazine publications are going to be great for you. Some of them are a little bit more in the weeds, but any of the basic ones will do. All right, Kathy, congratulations. You got yourself a $25 Schrock Innovations gift certificate, and we'll see you next Sunday for another edition of Compute This. Woo, that was tight.
Breaking in the news.
Sorry, Rob. I had to go. Oh, wow.
I'm Pam Puso.
Sorry, that
Fox
we have to be
News.
loud for a minute,
That's what
guys.
Pfizer is saying about the
There's a
initial
problem with the
doses
board.
of its coronavirus
We just
vaccine.
want to make sure you hear the
Shipments
news.
are being assembled at the company's manufacturing plant in Michigan. Workers are then adding dry ice to the packages.
They have to ship that vaccine at
Army General Gus
negative
Perna with Operation Warp Speed
37
is
or
leading the
negative 60
distribution
degrees
effort.
Celsius or something.
Because of the sheer
It has to be shipped in
energy,
dry ice.
the whole of America approach, I am absolutely 100% confident that we are going to distribute safely this precious commodity.
Most of the shipments are heading to hospitals where frontline
Are any of
workers
you
will
guys
be
gonna go
among
out and
the
get this
first to
shot?
get vaccinated starting
I'm just
tomorrow.
curious. Like, seriously, I'm just
More
curious.
than 219,000 Americans tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday, and more than 2,300 died. That's according to Johns Hopkins. Turning to politics and President Trump's assertion that he won the election big.
I worry about the country having an illegitimate president. That's what I worry about. A president that lost, and lost badly. This wasn't like a close election.
The president speaking to Fox's Brian Kilmeade one day after the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear an election case brought by Texas. Tomorrow, when members of the Electoral College meet, they're expected to cast votes for Joe Biden. Both Democrats and Republicans are getting out the vote in Georgia, where 2 U.S. Senate elections are on the line.
Make sure your friends and neighbors going out and voting, doing everything they can to preserve the Senate from the Republican Party. Because if you don't, they will take away your liberty.
House Republican Jim Jordan campaigning yesterday in Georgia for Republican incumbents David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. They face tight runoff races against Democrats Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. America's listening to Fox News.
Sorry, I was going to shout over that. But let's listen to the news. I have questions to answer, so I'm typing out answers here. Keith asks, I've done as you suggested and set my computer to do backups now, but when it does a backup, the computer goes beep, 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 and he sends me a winky face. So sometimes, Keith, I don't understand if you're being sarcastic or not, because if your external hard drive is going beep, 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 that's something that happens. That means your external hard drive is bad and it's not backing anything up. So I'm going to type that on there, and I'll send you a winky face so you don't know what...
I hate to even say this, we had our best week of practice offensively, maybe since I've been in Nebraska. So,
all right. Best week of practice. That game was something else. All right. Thor, we got 2 different emails. Okay, I already covered that. I hate that when I reply to a comment, it takes me back to the top of the comments again so that I have to start over and look at them from the beginning. Don't lay on a bed. This is lovely Kimberly's Zoom advice. She says, don't lay on your bed during a Zoom call. Make sure your dirty laundry isn't all over the floor in the background. Literally. Okay. So we had to do a conference call. We had a client who's putting a warehouse of equipment together. And Gabe in our Omaha Service Center is our corporate IT guy who handles the firewalls, the VPNs, all that stuff. And so he was off that day, but the client really needed to have a call that day. So we're like, Gabe, can you do a Zoom call from home? And he says, sure, Thor. So he gets on the Zoom call, and I always get our guys into the call so that when we join the call, we're all there when the customer comes in. Another stupid Zoom rule, don't start the meeting until all the people are there, right? And so the last person that you have to require to start the meeting is the person you're doing the meeting for, right? So anyway, he gets on the Zoom call, and so his computer's in his bedroom. His bed is behind him, and it's completely unmade. Like, it just covers everywhere. And I'm like, Gabe, is that your bed? Now, what I'm really saying in my head here is, Gabe, make your bed. Make your bed, Gabe. But so then midway through the call, my eyes wander over. Next to his bed is a nightstand, and next to the nightstand is a laundry hamper. And on the floor in front of the laundry hamper appear it's hard to make it out, and I'm trying to look and not look at the same time. They could be a pair of tidy whities on the floor right there. And after the call, I'm like, Gabe, is that your underwear on the floor next to the hamper? And he's like,
maybe.
I thought I got it all in the hamper. Like, oh, golly. So, yes, when you're doing your Zoom call from home, be cognizant of what's behind you in the background.
My cat.
Parker has a cat at home, so when we're doing our morning meetings, the cat always jumps. So he's sitting, and in front of him is a table with his thing, and behind him there's like a ledge that divides the room into 2 separate spaces, and the cat always jumps up on that and walks behind his head. So you're talking to Parker, and this cat just walks by, and then of course it stops behind his head and it rubs up on his head, and so he's trying to have a conversation, and he had a big afro for a while too. So he's sitting there, and this cat's just like rubbing in his afro, and
fluffy,
and he's like. Well, it's hard to take anyone seriously when you have a cat rubbing on your head. So rule number 4 of Zoom calls, don't rub animals on your head while you're in a Zoom call. This tip brought to you by the Schrock Innovations Computer Company. All righty. Yeah.
See, I would skip the Zoom call completely and go, kitty.
With Merrill guided investing,
let's see.
you have the option to work with an advisor.
Okay, so Randy says, I have a question about DuckDuckGo. On my cell, it's a standalone app. On my laptop, it's an extension for Firefox. Is there any other way to use DuckDuck? Yeah, you can just go to duck.com. Literally, go to duck.com. It's like going to google.com. So you don't have to have the Google app on your phone, for example, to search with Google. You don't have to have DuckDuckGo app on your phone to search with duck. You can just say, go to duck.com, and it'll search for you. I've been comparing the results between duck.com and a couple other websites. Here's the thing, guys. This is what's really challenging. If you're a business and you're watching right now, what's really challenging right now is that we have a complete divide in the media. Everybody is seeking out their own echo chambers right now. So you've got people on the right, for the first time ever, Newsmax TV is pulling bigger ratings than Fox News Channel. Newsmax TV, which is available on Cox Cable. I had no idea. I didn't even know Newsmax TV existed before this election. And now they're pulling more ratings than Fox News. Now, meanwhile, on the other side, if you're on the left side of the aisle, you're watching MSNBC or maybe CNN. If you think you want fair and balanced, if you're on the left side of the spectrum, you're going to go to CNN. If you kind of want fair and balanced, and you're on the right side of the spectrum, you're going to kind of hang out at Fox News. If you are hardcore in one camp or the other, you're going to be on Newsmax or you're going to be on MSNBC. As a business, how do you market to those two different populations? People who listen to MSNBC and are on that side of the aisle, they don't listen to AM radio. They don't even know we exist unless they find us on Google. So we can't choose to just abandon a platform. We can't choose to walk away from Facebook and go to MeWe. We can't choose to walk away from Twitter, even though we don't have a Twitter account, and go to, Parler, at Thor Schrock on Parler. They don't do business accounts there, so it's just my account, and I don't post there nearly as much. Camille's going to help me out with that. I've asked her to put together a plan that kicks me in the pants to make sure that we're actually posting stuff on social media. I get so wrapped up in the service center sometimes that I forget to post all the interesting things I'm seeing, and so I need somebody to remind me to do that. The long and the short of it, guys, is it's tough. I mean, we looked at doing cable, and literally our advertising agency is like, don't buy cable. Don't buy any cable channels, none of them. And I was thinking, why? And they said, well, your reach is so much smaller. You can spend that money so much more effectively buying like local news, for example, because everybody watches the local news. And I'm like, I don't ever watch the local news. I can't remember the last time I tuned into KETV was when there was severe weather and I was worried I was going to get scooped up by a tornado. I just never listen to local news. I guess I don't watch it on TV. I don't have time to sit down for a half an hour at a set time of day and watch a 30-minute news broadcast, 50% of which I don't care about. I just don't have time for that. I read a lot of news. I've detailed in great detail how you can go to omaha.com with the proper VPN and an incognito tab on your browser and defeat the paywall. Hey, maybe that's why they dropped the computer repair category from the best of stuff. There was no computer repair category in the best of, not best of, the People's Choice Awards for Omaha or Sarpy County. There was no computer repair. Nobody got it because there was no category for it. So yeah, maybe I made some friends there. I don't know. But, so I read a lot of my news. And when I read news, like, for example, the other day I was looking at Liberty Daily. And they had a story on there about, I think it was Governor Newsom requiring people to quarantine in their homes and then suggesting that they quarantine inside a smaller structure within their home to maintain social distance from family members. So they wanted you to quarantine within your home in another quarantine. And I'm looking at this story, so I tap on the headline because something isn't right there, right? That's weird. It's California, though. You never know. And I'm reading the story, and the quotes are just outlandish. I'm like, what? I'm like, this can't be true. This is too much. And then I'm like, wait a minute, whose story is this? Anyway, and I scroll back to the top, it's the Babylon Bee. So I'm like, okay, it's a satire story. Got it. Okay. But you see, you got it. When you read the news now, you can't just assume that any news source is true. And I think that's what really is ticking off big media, is that you just can't assume that what they're telling you is true. You have to critically think for yourself. Now, the problem is there is always a portion of the population that doesn't have the time, desire, or capability to think for themselves. So they're just going to say, I've digested the news. I know what's going on. I'm a good citizen. I'm going to move on now. And it never occurs to them to think, is that actually true? Now we're hearing that, Hunter Biden has been under federal investigation since 2018. But nobody mentioned that before the election. You couldn't talk about that at all before the election. Now news organizations are retroactively going back and reporting about it now that it doesn't matter. It matters, obviously, but you know what I mean. So it's disingenuous. And I think anyone who's a reasonable person, even people who support Joe Biden, can look at that and say that was pretty shady stuff. Now, it worked out for us, so whatever's, but it's pretty shady stuff. So I don't know. It's just, how do you market to people that do not consume the content that you have? I don't know. All right, so this is where we ask for questions. If you guys want to talk about anything specific, I can see that there have been some questions that popped up. I haven't been able to trombone the screen from 5 feet away here and get it. So I'm going to look at my big screen over here, large print edition. You know what I mean? I can't believe the Supreme Court's decision. Do they not realize they just neutered themselves if we lost the Senate? Yeah. So the Supreme Court's decision, if you haven't followed this, if you listen to major media, the Supreme Court refused to hear Trump's lawsuit because it was baseless and it was a long shot. If you actually look at why the Supreme Court did not hear the case, they didn't hear the case because they said that the state of Texas does not have standing in a matter of internal voting inside the state of Michigan, inside the state of Georgia. In other words, Texas' opinion about how Georgia runs their election means nothing. Just like Nebraska's opinion means nothing. Just like it just doesn't mean anything. You can have whatever opinion you want. That's how they run their election. That's how they run their election. Now, if you are inside the state of Georgia and you file that same lawsuit to the Supreme Court, then you have standing. So they didn't reject the case, as they say, on the merits. They rejected it based on standing. The person who was suing, or the state in this case that was suing, was not injured directly by the actions of the other state. Therefore, they have no standing to sue. You didn't get injured. You can't sue someone because you just don't like what they're doing. You have to be injured by it. Well, you're not injured. And Texas is saying we were injured because, we didn't vote for the same guy. You're not injured. Now, if you're inside that state, and in fact, I believe that there is a lawsuit. I don't know what state it's in, but there's an elector that's filing a lawsuit. One of the electors that's going to go vote in the Electoral College is filing a lawsuit saying, hey, this wasn't right to change the rules like this. And what the whole Texas case was talking about anyway was the fact that all these states changed the rules from the governor or the Secretary of State when their law in the state says they have to go through the legislature to do these changes to rules. So if they changed it without going through the legislature, that's not a legitimate change. Therefore, the rules shouldn't have been followed. Therefore, they didn't follow the law. Therefore, it was not a lawful election. And the electors should be able to go vote however they want. Basically, they should not be tied or pledged to vote for any particular candidate based on the popular outcome of the vote. So anyway, that's the long and the short of that case. No to vaccine, waiting till it's well tested. Diane says no as well. Carolyn in Round Rock, Texas. Thanks for the reminder to restart the computers this week. No problem. Audio sounds good. Thank you, Winston. Should you install the optional updates and device updates? I do. I do all the time, yeah. The only ones we don't automatically install for customers are version updates to Windows 10. We charge to do that. Number one, because a lot can go wrong, so it takes some time to do those. The second thing is sometimes people haven't installed those version updates for a reason. They may have a piece of software that's not compatible, and they don't want the version update, so we don't do those automatic. But any of the driver updates that come down from Microsoft through Windows Update are okay. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a driver updater program running on your computer. You don't want to have a fix me stick or fix it stick or any kind of we fix errors in your registry, we fix problems with your computer. Memory optimizers, especially on Macs. I see a lot of memory optimizers. Those are viruses, guys. The memory optimizer is a virus. But people who have Macs don't think they need virus protection, but they feel that they need a memory optimizer because their Mac's running slow. Your Mac's running slow because it doesn't have a solid-state hard drive and it needs one, number one. Number two, it's running slow because you're installing viruses on it on purpose. Don't do that. That's bad. And so get Sophos on your Mac. It doesn't slow it down, and it keeps it safe. Get Sophos on your iPhone. Get Sophos on your Android phone. Get Sophos on your laptop. It does not make sense in your home to protect one point of entry and leave the rest of them unprotected. For example, you might live in a bad neighborhood. If you live in a bad neighborhood, you might lock your front door. You may double lock it. You may have a chain. You may have the whole bit. Does it make sense to leave the back door unlocked? Maybe open. It was hot out, you know? No, it doesn't make sense. Don't do that at home. That's all I'm saying. Thor, I stopped watching all local and national news. I do watch a streaming channel. Yeah, you know, it's not like a political thing for me. It's not like I don't like local news. I mean, I read Omaha.com. You know, I will go to the KETV website and things like that when I want to see what's going on. When I hit the end of the internet, you know, I'll read the local news. But I just, like I said, at 6 o'clock in the evening, you know, I've got 3 kids. You know, my wife's making dinner. She's got a bajillion things going on. I'm running a business. I just don't have time to sit down and watch a 30-minute news broadcast. So it always makes me wonder when my marketing agency is telling me everybody watches the evening news, and I'm like, you know, no, they don't actually. This doesn't seem quite right. So, but the problem is, name me one source where we can reach more people. That's the follow-up argument. And that's legit. So you can spend one commercial on the evening news and reach like 80% of a population center over a course of a week. Or you can spend money on the Hallmark Channel, on the DIY Network, on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and Newsmax, and you're going to get 20% of the population, but you're going to spend more money. So the challenge here is there's a concept in marketing. I call it, it's a concept in marketing. It's not my concept, but I don't know what the rule is called, right? So I made up my own name for it so I can sound smart. It's called the fishbowl concept. So basically, when you're a business and you have money to market with, you want to rule the largest fishbowl that you can possibly rule and dominate. So if you have a teeny weeny marketing budget, your bowl is very small, but you will own your bowl. And then as you own the bowl, guess what? You make more money. You can increase your marketing budget. And guess what? Someday, just like Granddaddy, you can buy a bigger bowl. Yeah, right? You get a bigger bowl, and then all of a sudden you're in 2 states. And you get a bigger bowl, and you're in 3 states, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about marketing and owning the bowl that you're in. The question is, we want to expand our bowl, but we know that our customer base is definitely right-leaning because all the advertising channels were on our right-leaning. So we want to stay present on Facebook. We want to stay present on Twitter and YouTube and places like that. Not because we necessarily agree or with what they're doing with censorship and all that stuff. They slapped an age restriction on us the other day. What's up with that, right? So anyway, all right. Good morning. What are everyone's favorite snacks to get during the middle of Compute This? That's hilarious. Oh, golly. All right. I'm with you and having my coffee and enjoying the show. Let's see. We're fans of Hy-Vee's blueberry scones. Kim, don't tell them that. They don't literally. Okay, so I'm at Hy-Vee, and they have a stack of raspberry white chocolate scones. I mean, there's more of them than you can shake a stick at. And I'm like, raspberry white chocolate? Can I just get a blueberry scone, please? Maybe a raspberry scone would have been fine. What's with the white chocolate? Like, do I need white chocolate in my breakfast scone? They never have any blueberry ones left. Now the lovely Kimberly told everybody to go buy them, and now they're going to be sold out forever. Never going to get a blueberry scone ever again. We're going to have to start making our own scones. It's like we're going to have to crack our own wheat, and we'll compute this scones. There we go. Yeah, you can get them during the aftershock. You can get them during the break in the middle of the show. We have a concession stand out in the hall. There's a little monkey, turns a crank, and they sell scones. It's pretty cool. Welcome to Schrockville. Grab some coffee, get my comfy, and a frosty morning hello from South Dakota. Good morning, Deborah. All right. All I'm getting is a black screen that won't play. Well, then you're getting ripped off. Maybe you should call Facebook and ask them what's going on. No, seriously, I'm just joking. Refresh the browser. That'll usually fix that. A small box that won't go away says you're using all of your Secure Updater licenses. Log into your Secure Updater account and purchase an additional license. How do I get rid of this? Okay, so what happened is you have Secure Updater installed on your computer. When Secure Updater is installed, it takes a fingerprint of your computer, and that's how it identifies what computer it's on. Microsoft changed what they were doing a little while ago with BIOS updates. Now you can get one of those optional updates. They're BIOS updates too for your computer that change the way the motherboard works and things like that. Also, the BIOS version number is part of the fingerprint. So what ended up happening is your fingerprint for Secure Updater has changed, and it thinks you're trying to install Secure Updater on a new computer when you're actually not. So to fix this, there's two things you can do. If you want to do it yourself, you can log into your own Secure Updater account at secureupdater.com. You click on login up there. Username is your email address. Password is either a password that you set or your phone number if we set it for you. Phone number with no dashes. So area code, 7 digits, no dashes. And you can log in. I would recommend you change that password if that password works, by the way. Once you're logged in, then you deactivate your computer. You turn off protection for that computer. Then you restart your computer. When you deactivate the computer, it makes a license available. When the computer reboots, it reloads Secure Updater. It says, look, an available license, and it protects your computer. The second way you can do it is you can pick up the phone and call us, and then we'll do it in like 10 seconds for you, and then you'll be done. I would recommend calling. It'd be a lot easier. All right. Cheryl and Rich, welcome to the show. KJ, morning from Lincoln. The video image stay is very narrow. Blacked out on both sides. What happened to your computer-generated background? Well, if you missed out earlier in the program, guys, I actually forgot my power cord for my laptop in Des Moines. I had a customer that came in with an HP laptop that needed me to work on it. It was a BitLocker encrypted hard drive. His computer was installing Windows updates, and it pooped out in the middle and BitLockered itself, and now the drive is unreadable. So basically, I'm desperately trying to save this guy from having to go to the data recovery lab. But to do that, I needed his computer to run longer than the battery life would allow, and he didn't bring his power cord with him. So I said, oh, no problem. I've got a power cord in my bag for an HP. That'll work just fine. So I grabbed my power cord because I had my backpack with me because I'm cutting training videos in the Des Moines Service Center as well. It's a little quieter there, so I can actually cut some videos there. So we're doing training videos, and I'm editing them and doing things like that. So I had the whole background set up and everything in the Des Moines Service Center. So I grabbed my power cord, hooked it up to his computer, and promptly left the Des Moines Service Center without the power cord. Got here today, got everything set up, got the background behind me, and then was like, and there's no way on Facebook Live for me to, I don't think there is any way away for me to, let me see. I have a magic wand here. What does the magic wand do? I should probably ask Camille what this thing does. So this could get interesting here. I can put sunglasses on myself. So let's see. I think that's what this means. So it's thinking a lot though, like a whole lot. I don't know why it's thinking so much. All right, last call for questions while we're on here, guys. So let me know if you have any additional questions before we jump off the broadcast here today while I'm waiting for Facebook to decide. I think it might be that my phone is on the Wi-Fi network in here. No, it's not. It's actually on the LTE, which is actually better than the Wi-Fi network in here. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to do sunglasses on me or not, but it's just thinking an awful lot still. So see, I'm trying to touch it really lightly so it doesn't muck up the screen at all. But I don't see any sunglasses. Let's see what this one does. Bouncing ball? I don't know what the heck this is supposed to do. Are these backdrops or backgrounds or what? I don't know. So anyway, thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. Ron says great show today. I appreciate it, Ron. You know, part of going to Des Moines, I've been opening the service center and closing the service center. So basically, guys, when we hire technicians, a lot of times we hire younger guys, and they don't. I want to be respectful as possible here. Ooh, that's weird. I don't like that. Turn that off. That was one of the effects I could run on my phone, apparently. They don't understand how the world works entirely. So, for example, we had a situation where one of our technicians in the service center had a moral problem with what we were charging customers. And he didn't express that problem to myself or to management. He expressed it over and over and over again to the internal technicians in the service center. Shelly continually called us and said, hey guys, what's going on with this? And since Shelly was the one calling us all the time, we were like, what is the problem here? Like we have to charge for our time, So the thing in essence here is we charge an hour of labor. When you come in and you're getting a solid state hard drive upgrade, if we're cloning your hard drive, we charge you 1 hour of labor. If the source hard drive, if your hard drive is bad, we automatically charge 2 hours of labor. Now, sometimes when your hard drive is bad, it clones just fine. Sometimes it won't clone at all, And sometimes it will, but it takes like a year and a half to clone, right? So one of our technicians thought that it was morally unacceptable to charge a second hour of labor to customers. After he put in his notice and he left, we had another technician leave as well. For the same reasons. So we're a little shorthanded in Des Moines right now. That's why we're hiring in Des Moines. That's why I'm going down and working there a little bit to make sure that the training is in place. Because when I sat down with Shelly and talked with Shelly, I said, what happened in here? What is this moral problem everybody keeps telling me about? And she told me about this. And I said, all right, let me walk you through a scenario here. And the reason we charge the second hour, the reason we have all these systems at Schrock is because we've been doing this 21 years. We know when things go sideways, why they go sideways. So let me walk you through what happens. You bring your computer in, we put it on the bench, and you say, I want a solid state upgrade, Thor. We look at the computer, we test your hard drive. Oh yeah, your hard drive's bad, but we can still get you that solid state upgrade. It's a good time to do it. Let's get rid of this bad hard drive. It's just an hour of labor to clone the hard drive. Sounds good, perfect. I got a new customer coupon here. Oh wow, it'll be free. Literally just the cost of the hard drive. That's awesome. Okay, so we get to work. And an hour in, it fails. The clone fails. Huh, that's weird. Sometimes they fail. So we try again. Fails again. Maybe our drive is bad. We hook another drive up, try it again on a different drive. Fails again. Now we're like 3 hours in, right? Okay, well, now we can take your hard drive and we can hook it up to one of our testing computers and we can run a stabilization program that goes through and detects any sectors on the hard drive that are not working properly and then grabs whatever data it can from those sectors and puts them to safe areas. So then when we come back and do the clone later, in theory, we're only cloning off the areas of the hard drive that are stable. That scan takes 3 more hours. That's a business day now. Now we've been trying to clone your hard drive all day long. Now imagine I have 40 computers on the bench and 3 people in queue, and they're calling me saying, hey, when is my computer going to be done? We don't mind computers. That's why we have so many bench spots. We don't mind having to take time with computers to get the job done right, but we have to charge for our time. I mean, you want me to pay you for being here all day, right? I mean, can I just pay you for the time you're actually physically fingers in a computer working? So you start the clone, your knowledge isn't worth anything. No. You're literally a button pushing monkey that I'm paying to push buttons. And if you're not pushing buttons, you're not getting paid. Nobody wants to work that way, and that's not how computer repair works. There's a knowledge base, the same way that a plumber knows why Thor did his own pipes under the kitchen sink. And I suspect I know why this is, but I often get a backlog of water in the drain because my P-trap is so much lower. The sink is deeper, so the drain is basically lower than the pipe going out the wall. So yeah, water stands in the sink unless you run the garbage disposal. I know why it's happening. I don't know what the hell to do about it. I'm not a plumber, but I saved a bunch of money by doing my own plumbing, right? I'm not an electrician either. I can wire a light. I can, black, white, ground. I can do that. Give me a light switch with 6 wires on it that is, IP connected, and I'm like, I can probably figure this out, but it's going to be some trial and error, I mean, I should just call an electrician. Your knowledge base is worth money. That's why we're developing you as a technician so that you can work here and you can be paid for your knowledge and your work and how you help customers. Someday, you may move on to another job, and the lessons that you learn here are going to apply to that job as well. You are developing a career path when you start at Schrock. It's not just a job. It's not like going to McDonald's and starting your McDonald's career. It's not like that. You're starting a career where you're learning how to professionally handle yourself in a Zoom call. You're learning how to communicate with adults. I literally had to cut a training video, guys, that says conversations on the phone have a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion. They start with a greeting. Thank you for calling Schrock Innovations. This is Thor. Enter your name. How can I help you? They have a middle where we solve the problem for our customer, and they have a conclusion where we say goodbye. We don't just hang up the phone when we're done. That's considered rude. Have you ever hung up on a woman before? You do it all the time? Girls like that now? That was not the case. And, our demographic, that's not the case. They don't like to be hung up on. Don't do that. They're going to call you back. You hang up on me? Don't do that, right? But we have to train these guys this stuff. And so the knowledge base that you guys are getting on how to support people, how to make people feel comfortable in a support situation, and how to do the job right the first time, every time. Why we label everything that we take out of a computer. Why we do all the things that we do. Once you have that understanding, you're worth even more money. And this guy just didn't. Yeah. So anyway, and unfortunately, he was able to influence a couple other technicians, and I totally get it. One of them had a legitimate misunderstanding on a situation with one of our laptops. When we opened the Des Moines Service Center, all we could get, it was in the middle of a pandemic. We went to go order a laptop to put on display out front. We couldn't get the Ryzen 3 laptop that we usually buy for the Gallant. It was out of stock. So I bought a Ryzen 7 because I needed something to put on display, because they were going to be back in stock in 2 weeks, but we were having a grand opening, we were having a ribbon cutting. I had to have a display model. I didn't take the Ryzen sticker off, the Ryzen 7 sticker off the palm rest. It literally, my brain was somewhere else. I opened the laptop, made it look pretty, wiped it down, sanitized it. There it is. Well, the staff didn't realize that, so they've been selling computers to people telling them they have Ryzen 7s in them. And so we had to go back and buy a couple customers some Ryzen 7 computers because they thought they were getting Ryzen 7 computers. Well, you know what? We made it right. With the customers who were told they were going to get a Ryzen 7, they got a Ryzen 7. We didn't really have much of a choice there, did we? We had to get them what they paid for. There wasn't a need to go back in time from the day we opened the service center and call every customer that bought any computer from us and say, you might have heard somebody maybe say, there's no reason for that. So anyway, it was a long story short. He was like, I'm done. I don't want to do that. I'm like, we don't do that, but all right. So anyway, that's why I've been in Des Moines more often. That's why my power cord is in Des Moines. And that's why we're hiring in Des Moines right now. Shelly is amazing. Shelly has been a trooper through this whole thing, because Parker and I, we were like, what is going on with our peeps in Des Moines here? Logan is amazing. Tom is amazing. We're very lucky to have the people that we have. We're very sad to have lost many of the people that we have lost. But one of the things that I pointed out to the guys when, I was like, don't feel bad about this. This is okay. Church time. This is okay, guys, because historically, when we open a service center, the crew that opens the service center doesn't make it a year. None of them do, typically. Why is that? Well, when you open a service center, there's a lot of, there's no institutional memory, right? So you're borrowing the institutional memory of other locations. So where do you store things? Where do you keep things? And every location is the same, but it's a little bit different. Like where we keep the cloths and where the toolbox is in a different spot here than there. But everything that's supposed to be in the toolbox is in the toolbox. So everything's a little bit different, and that's stressful, having that. How is this supposed to work? And then you throw in on top of that the fact that you're 2 hours away from your closest cultural influence in the company. Your closest other service center, your sister service centers. It can be tough. And so, that stress adds up on people. And then basically we end up with 1 or 2 people staying, and then we replace the rest. And then we get them trained up. And then one of the original people leaves, and then we replace that person. We start getting an institutional memory going, where there's always somebody there who has been there before the newest person was there, and they know the way that the world works. Institutional memory, if you're familiar with the military doctrine, it's the same thing. That's why Marine Corps has a flag, and that there's a culture of being a Marine, which is different than the culture of being in the Navy or being in the Coast Guard or being in the Army. They're all different. And everybody, of course, thinks their culture is the best, right? But, whatever. It is what it is. All right. Let's see here. Organ music and singing are now a tradition in the Aftershock. You should never change it. Well, hey, that's all the Lutheran hour, guys. I don't have control of that. So if they move to a different time slot, it could be like the vitamin hour or something. I don't know. Or maybe we could just get another hour of Compute This. Wouldn't that be something? So anyway, all right, got to wrap it up, guys. I got to get to Hy-Vee before you do to see if there's any blueberry scones left. Throughout the service center, if you have questions, please feel free to ask us, guys. Seriously, as far as computers go, I didn't talk too much about this during the show, but we are blowing through computers like mad. People are buying computers for Christmas. We're doing our best to keep everything in stock. We are dealing with a couple shortages, nothing that's insurmountable, though. The challenge that we have right now is the building pipeline. I mentioned we got our huge shipment of parts in, so we're building holiday special desktops, and we're building them and building them and building them. we have other things we need to build for you too. You want endeavors, right? So we got to build endeavors. But there's so many holiday specials to do. Which one do we build first, Dad? So anyway, we're working on getting that all caught up and getting computers that you guys need into the service centers. In the meantime, as I mentioned, I will be in the Des Moines Service Center on Monday. So if you want to drop anything off in Des Moines, I'd be happy to work on it for you. I will be your technician on Monday. So if you're planning on stopping in 9500 University Avenue, I'd be happy to help you out. On Tuesday, I'll be in the Papillion Service Center. I feel like I have a schedule now. Part of the day I'll be in the Papillion Service Center, not the whole day. But I'll be in the Papillion Service Center with the kiddos there while making sure that they're building and doing everything right, and I'll be pitching in and helping out there as well. I don't get to Lincoln and Omaha as much as I used to, because Lincoln runs really, really well. Eli and Kane do a great job there. Ryan is really working out well. He's back from his quarantine. Addie, turns out nobody was positive, so literally everything was fine there. She's back now too. Lincoln's back to full strength, which is great. Nikki will be back in Papillion on Monday, so Papillion will be back in full strength. This is great. All the way around, it's I asked earlier who's going to get the shot, right? I don't honestly think, number one, I'm not going to rush out and get the shot, the vaccine for coronavirus, because I'm not in a high-risk population. I feel like if I get it, I'm going to be just fine. I'm not old enough yet to be too worried about it. I don't have too many. I mean, I got a few extra pounds around the middle, if you know what I mean, that I really need to do. Maybe I should eat fewer scones. That's part of the situation. But long story short, somebody else out there needs it more than me. Assuming all things are great and everything works, right? On the other hand, I have heard that, especially the 2-shot vaccines, your reaction to the first shot is not bad, but the reaction to the second shot is awful. You literally feel like you have coronavirus. So I don't know. I guess if you're in a vulnerable population, that'd be something to consider. You want to get vaccinated because you could die if you get this. But I don't think I'm going to rush. I think I'm going to let some pioneers take the arrows first. I think you should treat this like an iOS update, okay? You never want to rush out and get Apple's update the day it happens. You want to get Apple's update. This is so loud. Get Apple's update a couple weeks after everybody else gets it, just so you can see what happened to them first. I think I'm going to follow the iOS rule when it comes to this. And besides that, there's not going to be enough vaccines for everybody anyway. The thing that really bothers me is this concept of a vaccination record. Or a card that you have to carry with you to prove that you are vaccinated to travel. Some countries are doing this. That really, really doesn't sit well with me. But I guess, what can you do besides complain about it, right? All right, guys. We will talk to you all next weekend. Stay tuned. Next Sunday, we'll have another edition of Compute This and an Aftershock, of course. Throughout the week, if anything important pops up, I'll jump on and do a Facebook Live for you. Camille is helping me make sure that we get content going up on that Facebook page, so it's not just my face going down the page, because Schrock is more than me. Literally, I can only be in one place at a time, and the people that we have are the people that make a difference for all of you every day. So we want to make sure that everybody is is recognized there, and that we're covering all of our bases and reminding you of the basic things, like Microsoft doesn't call you, okay? That never happens. If they call you, just hang up the phone, because it's not Microsoft. We'll see you again next weekend, guys. All right.